one of the big pet peeves that I have is diversity of thought. So anytime I go into a situation, every time I hire somebody, I put them through a disc assessment. But basically, an assessment tells you how the individual thinks and goes about solving problems and how they communicate with other individuals. And a lot of teams, so one of the things that I always do is when I inherit a team or if I'm building a team, I want to make sure there's really diverse thinking, diverse mindsets. Because an analytical person versus an action-oriented person, they're going to look at problems very differently. So you put different mindsets into a room and they balance each other. And the most crucial part of that is you have to work with them that they appreciate the other person's skill sets. But the fact is, you need those wingnuts. If I don't have somebody on my team that loves detail, I'm dead. But I do look at the team and say, okay, do I have a team with a diverse mindset?
That's a game changer for businesses.
Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Steve Ramona. Business with a servant's heart. Listen to the podcast. Steve Ramona. We're all about to talk on life. Our guest will share his life story. We want you to success in life. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk on life. We're gonna talk on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are gonna witness.
Shout out to my sponsors, A Mind for All Seasons. Your brain is your greatest competitive edge, so why not optimize it? Just text optimize to 72000, 72000 for instant access to 6 quick videos that help you think faster, remember more, and stay focused longer. A big thanks to Epic App, the 4-step storytelling system I use every day to connect and to convert. Try it free. Email me at stever1961@gmail.com. That's stever1961@gmail.com, and I'll get you the free app. Doing Business with a Servant's Heart was just named top 6 in small business marketing. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm excited. It's a new year, my first show this year, so I'm excited to have my guest on. It's January 6th. Feels like November. But we're going to launch, and we're going to talk about the thing I'm pretty passionate about, because when you're a servant heart, you're a servant leader as well. My guest is definitely that. And as I started a couple shows ago, here's my gratitude card for today. You are capable of such great things. I think you are awesome. Keep that in mind when you wake up tomorrow morning or go through your day. You are awesome. With that being said, let's bring our guest on. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Let's jump on the book. Name of the book and what your goals are with the book.
Well, it's the name of the book is called Culture Work, and it's kind of a catchy name, but it's all about organizational culture. And you mentioned that I'm a servant leader, and look, the best way that I can demonstrate that I'm a servant leader is really make myself totally disappear in an organization. And if there's a culture inside of an organization that empowers people, that allows people to succeed, allows people to empathize with each other, you don't need me at the top, right? So that's, I think, the ultimate definition of a servant leader is just to get out of the way, create an environment where people can succeed, where people can excel. That to me is the definition of an ultimate servant leader.
This is a perfect time because it is the beginning of the new year. I call this the first business day of the year since we ended on Friday the 2nd. What's one tip somebody listening was an entrepreneur, a founder, business owner, or that person stay-at-home mom that I mentioned to you wants to be more of a servant leader in their own business?
Well, if we stick with the topic culture, as I mentioned to you before, a lot of company leaders or company owners don't start thinking about organizational culture, vision, values, things like that until, way down the road. They may have generated $5, $10, $15 million revenue, and then all of a sudden they start thinking about it. But if you come out from the outset, even before your first sale, and say, look, these are the values that my organization and my company is going to be basically led by. Right? Whatever those values are, And then those values become shared values of the organization as you hire people, as your organization grow. I think it's essential. A lot of people just look, okay, I got to sell, I got a product, who's my customer? So they think about marketing, they think about sales, they think about infrastructure operation. They never really think about values. And especially a lot of entrepreneurs are partners. So may have two people partnering up on an idea. And unless they really establish those values, those shared values among the two people early on, it's going to rear its head like 5 years, 6 years down the road. And one partner is going to turn to the other and say, hey, this is not what I signed up for. And it becomes really an ugly breakup, like a marriage. So shared values, extremely important.
And that happens a lot. I've talked to many people last year that, probably 10, 20 people that exact same scenario happened. So how do I pick a partner? I'm an entrepreneur. I need a partner. I'm looking for a partner. How do I find that best partner?
How do you find your wife? How do you find your husband? Right? It's the same thing. When you look at a business partnership, it's like a marriage, right? You have to have common goals. You have to have shared ideals, shared values. You could be opposite in personalities. In fact, that's probably good. They joke all the time that, when people get married, they're total opposites, and that's okay. But you have to have shared values. You have to have a common interest, a common goal. Otherwise, it all falls apart.
Yeah. What's the keys to leadership success?
To me, it's when the light went on that it's not about me. Right. As early on in my career, I really thought it was about me. I thought I was making all the right moves. I thought if I pick the right people, if I make the right decisions, then I'd be a good leader. And that's exactly the opposite. What you have to do is you really have to realize that it's not about you. It's about the people that you serve, the people on your team, the people on your board, your customers. So it's not really about you. It's just, and when I became CEO, I thought I had the easiest job in the room. I had to do a couple of things. Like I mentioned, make sure the culture is lived inside the organization through shared values. Make sure everybody understands what the vision is, what they're trying to work through. Make sure everyone understands how they contribute to that vision. And then get out of the way and just support them. Whether support them in resources, support them in mentoring, support them in training. I mean, so it's really basically my money and my time, how to support them and make them successful and get out of their way.
I like to get out of your way. I think a lot of people think control is leadership, and it's so far from that value. That's not even control. You could be not in control and have a successful company. Of course, you have control the sales, marketing, accounting, and all that. That's a whole different ballgame. You mentioned John Maxwell, well known, you big part of your business. Talk about why you went that way with working with the Maxwell resources.
Well, John is the ultimate servant leader. If you buy into the John Maxwell organization, a lot of the values came from John's father. It didn't even come from John. If you listen to John, it came from John's father. He said every day, get up, love people, add value to people, value people. And if you look at the organization today, the John Maxwell DNA has evolved from that, but it starts fundamentally to say, look, we are people of value who value people who add value to people, right? So it's all about adding value. And I'm a little bit hesitant to use this value because it's an overused, abused word, right? But that's what John Maxwell's DNA is, right? First it starts with, look, I can't add value to somebody. I can't make somebody better unless I continue to invest in myself and I continue to grow and I continue to be equipped so I can equip others. And then the second one is I have to value people, right? Because I can't add value to you if I don't value. I have to value you as a human being. And if I don't do that, then I can't add value to you. And then the third one is my intention is really to make you a better version of yourself. So add value to you. So it starts with that.
The value is misnomer. I talk to very wealthy people. You do too, because you work with high-end companies, and you'll get a very wealthy guy give $1 million to a nonprofit and go, hey, I brought value. Yeah, you did a little bit, but one gentleman podcast, Peter guest, he said, why don't you go on their board? Why don't you show up at an event? Not only bring money, but your value is you. John or Tom, I call you John Maxwell Jr., I guess. Tom, your value is your experience, and that's what you do. You bring that to the table because you flatten that curve for everybody, right? You know, I'm starting out. I don't know what I'm doing. You come in and go, hey, I'll flatten that curve a little bit for you.
Absolutely. That's what mentorship is about. It's basically two willing participants, right? One willing participant says, okay, I'm willing to learn from this individual. I value what expertise he has, wisdom he has, experience he has. So willing to listen to him.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, the other person looks at that person and says, okay, well, I believe in the future of this individual. I see potential in this individual, so I'm willing to invest my time and my efforts to help this individual become a better version of themselves.
Yeah, listening is big. The active listening, that's important. Talk about that as the leader.
God gave me 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, right? Look, in every single situation, and I was an expat for about 25 years, so by definition, that means every 3 years I was in a new role, right? You have your expat shelf life is about 3 years. And why is that? Well, they put you in that role to fix something, to do something. And you have about time frame about 3 years to get that done. And if you get it done, kudos to you. You move on to something bigger, better. If you don't get it done, they show you the exit. I mean, it's basically the way where the expat world works. So every 3 years, I would go into a new situation. It would be kind of foolish of me to come into a situation and say, okay, well, this is what you got to do, A, B, and C. I mean, most of the situations I was put in an expat is to turn companies around, especially in emerging markets. So every time I arrived in a situation, there was an issue either with sales, profits, or something in between. And so for me to come and say, oh, this is how you fix it, that'd be kind of foolish. First thing you got to do is kind of listen to the customers, listen to the employees, learn about the markets. And then when you feel you have enough information, then again, don't make those decisions in isolation. Get the team together. Now, you may not have the right team, which means you have to make some changes. But once you feel you got the right, team together, and then you sit in that room with those folks to solve the problem together.
Asking questions too, which you just did. You ask all those questions and listen. You're a storyteller. I'm excited because I love stories. I think podcasts should have stories. You have a great story. I'm sure you do, many of them. Well, one or two stories about a company you turn around?
Well, there's a couple. The one I like most is really the one in Prague. I was sent to Prague back in the 80s. The company was very small. It was I think they had about 42 million in revenue, and they were losing about, I think, 2.5 million on 42 million. So they sent me in, and 2.5 years later, when they promoted me and sent me to Latin America, we were at about 68 million, and we were churning about 4 million in profit. And how did we do that? Really, the only guy that left the company was one of my salespeople. The CFO was the same person. The marketing person was the same person. The operations person was the same person. One of the sales leaders also was the same person. So 2.5 years with the same exact team, right? We're able to turn that through a number of different approaches. But it was fundamentally changing a culture, changing the way people are respected, their ideas were brought to fruition, the way they communicated with each other. One of the things that I did, there was two things that I did was what I would call non-negotiables. One non-negotiable was every Monday morning. I got this from Rudy Giuliani when he was mayor of New York City. Every Monday morning, I would sit down with my team, my direct reports, for about 2.5, 3 hours. Not a long, drawn out meetings, just like, okay, what did we do last week? What, any new news, and are we ready for this week? Very similar to what you look at any military branch. Any military branch has an after action meeting, after action report, and they do the same thing. Look at what happened on that mission, what went right, what went wrong, what could they do better, and that's it. So that was every Monday morning with my direct reports, and then once a month I would sit down for about a half day, maybe 6 hours, individually, one-on-one with each one of my direct reports, and it was an open table. You can put anything on the table you wanted to discuss. Part of that was a mini business review to say, how were you doing against your goals? But part of that was, hey, you're going through a divorce. Your kid's got a drug habit. I mean, anything was on the table, and I was there to support them one way or another. Hey, your father's sick. You need to take a week off to spend with your father. Go ahead, right? Um, you're falling behind because you need more resources. Okay, let's talk about that. What kind of resources do you need? Or you need my help on a commercial shoot, or you need my help with a customer. Okay, let's get it on the calendar. I'll go out and help you. Right. So, and that happened once a month. And then for the rest of the month, they knew that if they needed me, they can ask me. What I wasn't going to bug them. Right. You had your 4 to 6 hours once a month. We discussed everything on the table, and I'm going to leave you alone for the next month. And you gotta have to do whatever you have to do, right? And if you need me, I'm there for you, but I'm not gonna bug you.
Yeah, you're not on top of them all the time. I love that part. You didn't clean sweep the employees, because that happens a lot. I work with a lot of exit strategists, and these companies want to come in and just sweep it away. And I love that you did that. Is that kind of your DNA when you come into a company? You try to keep the staff that's there.
I look at the staff, right? Well, one of the big pet peeves that I have is diversity of thought. So anytime I go into a situation, every time I hire somebody, I put them through a disc assessment. Maybe some of your readers know what a disc assessment is, but basically, and there's Myers and Briggs, and there's LSI, there's Strength Finders, there's all these different but basically, an assessment tells you how the individual thinks and goes about solving problems and how they communicate with other individuals. And a lot of teams, I don't want to say a lot of teams, but many times leaders have a tendency to surround themselves with like-minded individuals. They call it chemistry, right? They all think alike, they get along real well. The problem is they all have the same blind spots. So one of the things that I always do is when I inherit a team, or if I'm building a team, I want to make sure there's really diverse thinking, diverse mindsets. Because an analytical person versus an action-oriented person, they're going to look at problems very differently. The action-oriented person is going to say, well, our deadline is September 1st, so we got to get out the door. So they'll do everything under the face of the earth to make that September 1st deadline happen, making a lot of mistakes along the way. The analytical person is going to balance that because they really don't care about September 1st. What they care about is having enough data points to make the right decisions, right? But if you have a whole bunch of analytical person in the room, they'll never get anything out the door because they'll just overanalyze everything. And I wouldn't call it procrastination, but they overanalyze everything because they need more information. I need more information. I can't make a decision, right? So you put different mindsets into a room and they balance each other. And the most crucial part of that is you have to work with them that they appreciate the other person's skill sets, right? I use myself as an example. Early on, when I was a young person, there's certain people I couldn't stand. I was like, man, get off your ass and do something, right? And it wasn't that problem. They were just like highly analytical persons. They just didn't want to make a decision, didn't have enough data points. So I used to call them wingnuts. Wingnuts were these strategic thinkers that only saw the big picture. They didn't care anything about implementing. They didn't care about data, they didn't care about details. They just had this big picture ideas. They were always the idea guys. So I used to call them wingnuts. But the fact is, you need those wingnuts, you need those big ideas guys on the team because they're the ones that are going to generate the ideas. They really couldn't care less about implementing because they don't like doing that. Myself, I hate detail. I hate detail. If I don't have somebody on my team that loves detail, I'm dead. So I have to build a team that has all those different skill sets on it. So I don't go in and clear house, but I do look at the team and say, okay, do I have a team with a diverse mindset? And if I don't, I need to do something about that before I come out the gate.
And I love the sports and business bridge, and you just did that. Let's take a football team. Hey, you're not good in offense. I'm going to move you to defense. There's many stories out there, NFL players that moved and became incredible players, Hall of Fame players, because the coach saw something just like you did and said, hey, let's bring these guys in. That's a game changer for businesses. But the other component of this is trust. A leader has to trust. You built that in, I can tell. How do people listening build trust into their business?
Well, look, it doesn't happen immediately. Trust takes time. Like you look at the Navy SEALs, they have the highest trust model. I live in San Diego, so I have a lot of guys that I know who are through the Navy SEALs, and they have a favorite saying, I trust you with my life and I trust you with my wife, right? Very high trust model. And that doesn't happen on day one. That happens through buds. And after graduating from buds and actually being, in training missions and battlefields, that trust is built over time. Same thing in an organization. You're not going to come out of the gate trusting somebody 100% of the time. People have a tendency to be a little bit skeptical, and trust builds over time. Or you can lose trust over time because you don't do what you said you would do. You don't have the other person's back. So, that's a model that can be and should be in corporate America, or even if you're an entrepreneur starting up a new company, you need to build trust, right? Using again the Prague story, right? When I arrived in Prague, we didn't have the best relationship with our customer base. So I spent probably about 2 to 3 months going through each one of the large customers, whether it was Walmart or Carrefour or, these big guys, and sat down and listened to them. And I said, this is our plan. And then they looked at me skeptically for obvious reasons, right? And then over the next 6 months, when they saw us actually deliver and do what we said or what I said we would do, then they began to build trust. And the next time we had a product launch, they loaded up because they knew the advertising was coming. They knew the promotion was coming. So they weren't skeptical about buying into a new product launch or stocking the shelves or give us on, end aisle displays or whatever, because they trusted us. They trusted me that we're going to do what we said we would do. And that takes time.
$25 million tip that you gave, 43 or 42 to 60, whatever that number, doesn't matter. We'll just use 20 million. I think all of you listening out there would love that kind of increase, which is a massive increase. So the sibling to trust is patience, what I'm hearing from you, Tom. You got to have both really to make trust work in a business.
Well, you have to have patience, but you also have to have people empowered. Like I can't trust you if you're not empowered to do what you said you're going to do. Right. So people have to be empowered on a team. And that's why culture work is so important, in my opinion, because it's so much more than leadership. Because the fact is, I love Warren Buffett's, I don't know if you ever heard Warren Buffett say this, but he said, I want to invest in companies with very strong brands that will survive any dummy, because one day a dummy will lead that organization, right? And that's really what I subscribe to in organizational culture, because ultimately, in any large organization comes a bad leader. And if the culture is set right, that organization will survive that bad leader. If this culture is not strong, that bad leader can ruin that organization. So that's why if you have a culture where the infrastructure allows people to excel, is empowering people, that people can make their own decisions, they can cultivate future leaders inside the organization. They have that trust model. They have the communication model. Even if an idiot shows up at the top of the organization, sooner or later, people are going to catch on the guy's an idiot and he's going to be gone. But the organization survives.
I'm loving this. This is, and it's nice because it works for entrepreneurs or $500 million companies. It just looks different, but this is across the board. I know you work with C-suite. Coming to the end here, what do you think business and C-suite is looking like in the next 2 to 3 years?
It's rapidly changing, at least I think, because of AI. I look at myself. I'm my worst enemy. My Claude is my new executive assistant, right? I use Claude as my executive assistant. I run everything through Claude. So, AI could be your best friend or it could be your worst enemy, because it's dangerous that AI will stop you make thinking, and you will rely totally on AI to think, to make decisions, etc. So I think part of the challenge for leadership and culture going forward is how to balance human touch, human communication, human wisdom, human discernment, versus and balancing that with AI input. So I think if you use AI smart, and you integrate AI, it will help your organization. But if you kind of just check out or let AI do everything, I think that's a danger.
and it's here to stay. Audience, if you're not embracing some of it, look at you're doing. You're not a young guy like me, and I use AI every day now, and it's informational. It's not what was the word somebody told me? Informational, not directional, meaning it just gives you direction, you follow it. We don't do that on the internet. We search and look, and I don't know if that's true. We got to do the same thing with AI. So I love that
Yeah,
you said that.
I have a conversation with it. Like some
Yeah.
people use AI, say, give me the answer. I basically ask AI a question. I call it augmented intelligence instead of artificial intelligence, and I have a conversation back and forth, and before I make up my mind on what to do, I ask probably Claude a series of 5 to 10 questions and banter back and forth. And then when I feel confident that what they're telling me makes sense or doesn't make sense, I always have it give me options. Give me 3, 4, 5, 6 different options. Let me choose. So it really helps me. But please don't rely and don't depend on AI because it'll just destroy your cognitive skill set.
Yeah. And it's your assistant. What do you do with assistant? You talk to your assistant. You ask
Yes.
questions. So you just nailed it. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Well, let's end with a fun question. I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. So I've got a reservation at your favorite restaurant. Me and you're going to eat. Got a table for 5. So I want you to invite 3 people, whether dead or alive, that have been influential in your life. And I think more importantly, what food are we ordering for the table?
All right. So we're in Istanbul. We're on the Asian side, and we're going to go to a restaurant called Günaydın. Günaydın is good day in Turkish, and
Wow.
it's a 2-floor restaurant. And when you walk in on the ground floor, there's probably about 25, 30 guys over an open fire spinning the meats and the vegetables and all that stuff. So, and most of, Turkish food is grilled meats, obviously no pork, but it will be beef or lamb, lots of vegetables, lots of, purees like eggplant puree, other purees. So that would be the food. Who would be at the table? For sure, I love to invite my buddy Frank. Frank Morelli was one of my. I would say he was my first servant leader boss. He showed me. I didn't know what servant leadership was. He was just my boss, and I watched him and I worked for him and I loved him. And then I guess later on, as I matured, I said, "Oh yes, Frank was a perfect example of a servant leader." So he definitely be at the table. If it's somebody dead, for sure, Jesus Christ should be there. I'd love to pick his brain. He was the best servant leader of all time. And talk about, setting up a culture and leadership multiplication. I mean, he started at 1, then went to 12, and today we have more than 2 billion Christians in the world. So clearly, the culture that he created keeps continuing to multiply. Right. And a third one, probably, either my wife or my kids. I love them dearly, and yeah, don't judge me by how many companies I purchased or how many companies I turned around. Judge me by how my kids grow up.
That's beautiful. What a way to end the show. Well, thank you for being an incredible guest. Your
Thank
knowledge and
you.
stories, like you told me, were fantastic. How can people find the book and how can they reach out to you?
Well, the easiest way is LinkedIn. I am blessed and cursed with a last name. Kereszti is impossible to pronounce, but if you do LinkedIn, you'll find me and my daughters. That's it. So the easiest, just look for Tom Kereszti on LinkedIn. You can't confuse it. It's only myself. And culture work, look on Amazon.
Easy peasy. It's another thing about servant leaders to make it simple. Cannot
Yeah.
make it hard. You can't lead that way. Thanks again, Tom, and audience. Subscribe to podcasts, whether it's Doing Business with a Servant's Heart or any other podcast, because Tom truly gave us a gift. He spent, and thank him for his time, 10, 15 minutes talking about leadership and how it can impact your life. Or guess what? You're talking to somebody at a party, an event, you're on the phone with somebody, and there's a struggle in their business. Send Tom's link. Have them listen to Tom for 10 minutes. I guarantee you it's going to impact them. And if it doesn't, that's okay. But that's what podcasts are. You can really impact and bring the gift of business and life to people at any time. With that being said, me and Tom want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of doing business with a servant's heart. Have a great day, everyone.